he declined the offer. He liked the warrior very much because she was different from other barbarians in her intelligence and cleverness. She would not betray him in a difficult moment, but her strength and fighting skills also made her an excellent assistant in battle. In general, Einar was an ideal companion. Bjorn offered it to her directly, promising to cover the cost of setting up the team and preparing the equipment. But in return he would take 80% of the loot. No sooner had he finished than the girl squeezed his hand, saying that she wouldn't understand if he explained further anyway, but was ready to just trust. The next day the two came to the temple of the barbarians. There they were greeted by the leader of the tribe, the same shrieking who had killed the other evil spirit. Bjorn really didn't want to come back here because of him, but there was nothing to do. He didn't seem to be in the worst of spirits today, so he greeted his friends, praising them for coming back, since few barbarians want to learn anything other than martial arts, like reading or writing. However, Bjorn explained that he had come here today for a different reason. He needed a spiritual seal, or rather, the seal of an immortal. The non-human races have their own peculiarities. For example, fairies have a contract with spirits that allows them to borrow their power. Dwarves have a blessing of armor that makes equipment more effective, and barbarians have a spiritual seal. The leader grabbed Bjorn by his clothes and pulled him to him, ordering him to answer how he knew about spiritual seals, since younglings like him usually don't know about such things. The boy realized that he suspected again. But he was ready for such a development, so he didn't even have to lie. Bjorn explained that he was in the library and learned that this ability helped the barbarians a lot during the war with the fairies. He smiled again and slapped the young man on the back in a friendly manner, saying that he was proud of him and Einar for their passion for knowledge. He then added that there was no reason to refuse, but that he would need to pay the sum of 800,000 crystals. The girl looked at her mate in surprise, asking if he was really going to do that. At the initial levels, it was very difficult to earn such an amount, so the girl's surprise was justified. And at higher ranks, rare materials would be needed as well. But right now, he had the money. The chief asked how the young man managed to earn so many crystals. He, by the way, had already come up with a wonderful excuse. It would have been even sad if the question had been asked. Bjorn said that he had found a wounded fairy in the labyrinth, made her his slave and took all the loot, then gave her the essence, and made her sister pay upon his return. The story caused a fit of laughter and cheers not only from the man, but also from the young barbarians gathered around. The chief even made a gift and returned 200,000 crystals, not bad for an ordinary tale. Bjorn got so into character that he threw his fist upward, shouting the uselessness of these long-eared creatures. Spiritual seal is a kind of amplification technique. The point is to fill the body with special ingredients that will give a special power. Barbarians tattoo their children when their soul is still pure, so that its paths can be seen even after growing up. That is why everyone has them. An advanced spiritual seal of an immortal is the main prerequisite for a barbarian tank. The others are definitely very useful as well, but for those who played a long game, it was the seal of the immortal that was the best option. However, applying it in reality proved to be much more painful than on the monitor screen. If it was only a level 1 seal, it looked like this kind of sensation would have to be experienced every time. The next morning, Bjorn went to the shopping district to buy the necessary equipment. Thanks to his training with Einar, the young man realized that a sword was not the right weapon for him. Besides, he was planning to focus on learning shield fighting techniques anyway, so it was useless to waste time on a sword. Bjorn turned to the shopkeeper to help him choose a blunt one-handed weapon. After pondering, the man pointed to a display case that was very popular with barbarians. The young man familiarized himself with the assortment. The power was certainly devastating, but it would be overkill for first-level monsters. He asked for something simpler. Then the seller offered to take the mace. After holding it in his hands for a while, Bjorn realized that he could not find a better weapon, so he chose this one. Then he bought a rigid half-armor and a custom helmet, because he couldn't fit into the usual one. When the barbarian bought everything he needed, he had 50,000 stones left on hand. A lot of time has passed since leaving the labyrinth, so city life has become routine. At 7 in the morning he gets up and has breakfast with Erwin, then sits in the library until 4 in the afternoon. After that he goes to eat at places he hasn't been before to learn information he can't find in books. Around 5 he goes to the barbarians. In a week of training he has begun to fight more than just Einar, who, by the way, he sometimes manages to defeat. She is certainly skillful, but her movements are predictable, a habit that is unlikely to be easily corrected. Then about 9 o'clock Bjorn comes home, washes himself, and dines again with Erwin. The meal is over by 11, and the fairy goes to her room. Thus the month flew by. Only 24 hours remained before the opening of the labyrinth. In the evening, Bjorn and Einar came to the Adventurers Guild. The Barbarian asked the girl at the reception desk for a magical connection for 2. After calculating, she concluded that the service would cost 15,000 crystals. It was a bit expensive for a one-time thing, but it was necessary because the starting points were determined automatically, and the magical connection would help to be in one place. Lastly, Bjorn ordered the most expensive dinner in the tavern for 800 crystals. His companion was surprised to see the table piled with meat. She gorged herself on the treats and said that she would try to earn more gems so that she could eat like that all the time. Soon they were both standing at the entrance. It was 10 minutes until opening time. Bjorn hadn't paid attention that time, but the portal appeared to be really huge. Suddenly he heard a noise and the praise of someone's name. He immediately realized it was the Barbarians. Apparently they had just gone through the ceremony. The young man wondered how they had managed to find their way in and arrive on time. Finally, the entrance opened, and Einar told her companion to enter. But Bjorn asked her to wait. He wanted to see if the situation would repeat itself if he went in just before closing time, which was 1 minute away. The portal began to narrow, which made the girl nervous, but the young man waited for the guard to say that the entrance was about to close. Finally, the desired word sounded. Bjorn grabbed his friend's hand, and they jumped in together. He was right, the friends found themselves in a dark area, but this time he took a torch with him. A few meters ahead, a stone stood against the wall. The guy smiled. Every gamer should know how to use bugs in his favor. The information window announced that the Barbarians had been awarded additional experience points for opening the portal first. Einar marveled at how quickly they had managed to get to the second level, for the chief had said it would take at least 3 days. Bjorn told her that he had read about it in a book, for which he complimented her on her intelligence. The silence around them and the raven's heart-rending cries made it clear that they had entered the lands of the dead. Suddenly the young man felt something strange, as if something was rushing up through his veins. Einar assumed it was an increase in spirit, that is, an increase in level. Dungeon and Stone had its own leveling system. The mana needed to use skills and the amount of essences that could be absorbed increased with level. When hunting, the experience needed to level up is given for the first kill of a monster particular species, so it's harder to move up each time. However, there is one more way to do this, to spider the maze. Points for opening portals are given every time. However, in any case, soon there will be more experienced adventurers here, to whom it is better not to reveal all the secrets. Bjorn turned to his companion to tell her that they've been traveling here for 2 days. If anyone asks about it, now she definitely won't blab. In the lands of the dead, there are monsters more dangerous than goblins, but there are no traps, so you can go wild. In general, the ideal location for 2 barbarians. Suddenly Einar noticed a few ghouls ahead of them. There were only 3 of them, probably because it was the first day. The girl said she was tired of wandering around idly, so she would deal with the obstacle herself. Not a minute later, all the dead people were lying on the ground in pieces. Suddenly, Einar instantly turned back to Bjorn when she heard an ominous scream. The young man explained that it was the towers. They didn't attack unless disturbed, so there was nothing to fear. The attacks wouldn't work anyway. If they attacked first, they would get a curse. So it was decided to go around the creatures. Suddenly the warrior shrieked and grabbed Bjorn by the neck, seeing the skeletons ahead. The barbarian barely got free, saying he would deal with them himself, but Einar had already bared her weapons. Bjorn wanted to give a hint to the girl to hit the core between the ribs, but before he could say anything, the first monster had already blown apart. After that, they walked north for about 8 hours, meeting a variety of monsters, among which were scary ghouls that were twice as big as usual, skeleton archers and skeleton warriors. There weren't many of them, so there were no special problems. The mace was perfect in weight and size, so the skulls of the creatures were broken several times more efficiently. The vest-shaped armor reduced the area that needed to be covered by the shield, which made fighting more aggressive. The steel helmet, of course, is unlikely to withstand a crossbow shot, but it copes perfectly well with corpulent skeleton bows. On top of all this is a battlemate, who is definitely not inferior to him in characteristics. Bjorn used to be surprised by her way of shouting the name of the ancient barbarian during every attack, but after trying this technique firsthand, he felt incredibly relieved. Now he was sure that the barbarian team was something. During the break, Ina noticed a wound on his comrade's arm, but he reassured her that it was almost healed. The immortal seal improves natural regeneration and stamina. For example, a cut half a centimeter deep heals in just a minute. The pain is incredible, but the effect is worth it. Suddenly, Bjorn felt the ground become drier, and the tower's screaming intensified. It could only mean one thing. The 8th rank monster was about to appear. Before he could even finish speaking, a huge creature with 3 red eyes, a death demon, appeared right in front of them. The barbarian realized that he